Eugene, the local scene was pretty full on over the weekend.
Yeah, I still haven't recovered from that weekend. It was pretty, it was cool.
Yeah.
It was, good weekend. I think we had people fighting Friday and Saturday. Yeah. What was it? Friday night. Friday was Aaron's show, and then Shuriken was on Saturday. Yeah, good weekend.
And happy with all the performances of your fighters? Any complaints?
Let me think back. Yeah. No, I was happy with across the board actually. I was happy with everybody's performance, to be honest. I thought everybody showed the effects of what we've been working on for, I'm going to say, probably a 9-month period. Yeah. And so we saw aspects of that 9 months come out throughout consistently across all those fights, most of them anyway. Improvement on what we've been working on over the last 9 months. So that's success to me. That's just a success. Development is success. Not, of course you have to win the fight in front of you. That's always number one goal, but if you have fighters that take the sport seriously, second to winning the fight is, and a very close second, is development. I mean, there's coaches out there, there's good coaches out there that'll argue that development's even more important than winning sometimes. And I sit in that boat a little bit myself, especially with the amateurs. I think with the amateurs, your goal's always to win, but if it's a true amateur, a true, not a guy that just comes in every now and then and does one fight a year, but a true amateur that wants to turn into a professional and make a career of it, then in the amateur ranks, development is far more important than results. Yeah.
I know you had a lot of fighters and you don't like choosing, but was there one fighter that was a standout, that you'd like to mention specially?
I thought, that's a difficult thing to do when I had so many people fighting that weekend. Young Nixon Suttons, I thought fought very well for his debut. He went back to what he knows best, which is he comes from quite a heavy wrestling background. But we didn't have a problem with that. And Nixon has been working on his stand-up very diligently the last year or so. So it would have been nice to see a little bit more of that, because he has very good stand-up and just experience-wise. But he got into some good wrestling exchanges, and that was taking people for their debut is always really cool. And and I also, at the ABA, I had Brooke Pritchard, who took a short notice fight against one of Aaron Gill's, who was really good as well. And your short notice fights are the best, I reckon. If you're a young amateur fighter like Brooke is, and any young amateur fighters out there, take a short notice fight, because it will test you. It'll be a part of your development. It'll be an experience you have to have. And I thought Brooke fought well. Yeah, I thought both girls fought well. Both girls had little contrasting styles, and I just thought it was an excellent fight. Knowing that Brooke was on a little bit short notice. Brooke does a lot of MMA and a lot of jiu-jitsu, so she didn't. She fatigued quite quickly in the arms, so she pushed herself a little bit. yeah, and the other girl was good, so I thought that was a standout fight on the weekend for me. And in the other standout fight, I had Claire Gardner fight as well, who's a young girl who's been training for years, hasn't had a lot of fights because it was just typical of the women's division. It can be hard to get her fights, but she got in there. She's getting on a bit, so she keeps talking about, I think that might be my last fight, but if I can convince her to have another one, I'll always have a go at trying to convince you to have another one. But if it was her last one, if she decides to pack in the gloves, it was definitely a memorable fight to go out, and it was like a toe-to-toe like battle war for every 3 rounds. So it was memorable because you just, man, in those fights you've got to just knuckle down and push yourself. She could, every time she came back to the corner, she could barely stand. Yeah, so it was a challenge cornering a fight like that as well. And then she started to, and when you start to get that fatigued, it's like she started to, her ability to have a poker face became less and less and less, but then the other girl was just as fatigued. And then it was just, it just came down to raw heart and determination, and the other girl won, but it was close, and it was just a good fight, just a good old-fashioned fight where both girls just had to push themselves to the physical limit of what they know. So fights like that are good, memorable.
Yeah,
love it.
Definitely one of my favourites over the weekend. That's for sure.
It's a good one. Yeah, cool.
I've got another question because the Bear, he fought, and then he's got to have a turnaround and fight again in a fortnight's time at top level, you know. And I just wonder, do you, when you're doing your fight plan and you're working out the moves, do you not give him any of the second fights, or do you sprinkle a little bit of that in and you've got to work on that as well, or do you just concentrate on one fight at a time?
Nah, you just got to sprinkle bits of strategy in that, you know, if you're fortunate enough, there are parts of the strategy that carry over between the two opponents. If you're not fortunate in that way, like if you're fighting someone with that two completely different styles, then you just have to kind of filter it in and make it all one camp that kind of merges together. So we've kind of did that. We've kind of filtered his strategy for the guy that he's got in a couple of weeks into the first camp, just because you have to, because there's only 2 weeks between the fights. But that's just what you have to do, I think. And you just got to fight, I think. It's, you know, like, it's still one of my leading pieces of advice for young fighters, whether it be professionals or amateurs, is, man, do a lot of fighting. Do a lot of fighting, especially when you're amateur. Don't worry about if you win or lose. No one cares if you win or lose in amateurs. I've seen some of the best amateurs in the world with losing records. Some of the best professionals in the world with losing records in the amateurs. Yeah, and then they end up being one of the best fighters in the world. They end up benefiting because they are constantly participating in the sport that they're trying to get good at. Nowadays, the culture's changed heaps. Nowadays, for whatever reason, if you're an amateur, you are trying to be undefeated or trying to be conservative, and it's just wrong. It won't get you anywhere. It won't get you to where you want to get to, which is assuming you want to get to the top of the world. Yeah.
Cage experience.
Yeah. Amateurs, you get a pass in amateur. You're allowed to lose when you're an amateur. You get a pass. There's not a single professional organisation in the sport that looks at your record and even pays any attention to what you did in the amateurs. But professional's different. It's a different league. You're a professional athlete. It's professional. That's what they look at. So amateurs, the amateur part of your career is very, very, very important part of your career, where you've got to do, where you have so much room and growth for development, and you have margin for error that you don't have when you're a professional. Your scope for development is a lot more limited when you're a professional, because you have to win the fights. Your number one priority, you have to win the fight. So you can spend, there's less scope for development, and everything has to be pushed more towards winning. So, I mean, a lot of coaches and gyms, and they approach the amateur part of a young guy's career, they're a little bit too conservatively, and they need to throw a little bit more caution to the wind.
Well, the next question is about definitely about winning, and that's with Kevin Jusay and Carlos Olberg. They're both fighting in a fortnight's time, and pretty important fights. They're all important.
Yeah, they're all important. I mean, Carlos is making his way into the going to attempt to make his way into the top 15. I can't remember what Alonso is.
12, I think.
Is he? Yep. Yeah. So that's number 12 spots up for grabs, and then obviously Kevin's on the verge of being on a new contract, and he wants to go into those negotiations for a new contract with some steam behind him, you know. So if he can get another good win, that's going to be good for him. So they're very important fights. I mean, they always are. Yeah, at that level, just winning is the only acceptable outcome, really. So yep, they're on track. Yep, they're looking good. Like, my answer is always the same. Like, yeah, they're looking good. Another couple of weeks and they leave, and another big event.
Everybody always asks about the other fighters that are on the verge, or you haven't heard anything back, especially about Aaron Toe.
Nah, like I said, like it's the dynamics, you know, how it all works between the UFC and the powers that be and us is, it's just a constant kind of conversation. I mean, we obviously think Aaron's the best bantamweight in this region, and then it's up to the UFC. It's up to us to help convince the UFC that that's true, and then just get an opportunity, get a foot in the door, and then I know Aaron can compete with those guys who consider themselves the best in the world, for sure. Yeah, as so too can a lot of my guys training here at the moment. There's a lot of guys here that right now I think will do well in amongst some of those top divisions at the top, but it's not also that's not necessarily to say that they belong in the UFC yet. Like, there's a process you have to take. There's a process you have to take to get there. And we talked about it already. There's development. This gym has put only a handful of UFC fighters through. We've only put a handful of fighters through to the UFC, but more than half of those have made it into the top 15, top 10. Yeah, 2/3 of those, I think. So that's all got to do with the development system that you have, and putting people in the right place at the right time, and all of this stuff. So patience, and those young fighters from this part of the country will get their opportunity, but they just have to be patient. If they are worthy of being in the UFC, then that's where they'll end up.
Relentless was released a couple of weeks ago. Rave reviews everywhere I go. People are talking about it. How much of good feedback have you had, and how what's the excitement around the gym, especially, and a lot of the people that are viewed on it?
Yeah, no, I've had nothing but positive feedback from the people that, from around me. But the key to that statement is those are the people that are around me, and the people that are around me are fight people. That's who I spend my day-to-day life with. So it's a little bit of a skewed demographic. But I have heard a few good reviews from people that I know that have nothing to do with fighting, and it's good to hear those, because I think that will be the measure of its success, right? What the people who have nothing to do with fighting think about it. So far, from what I can understand, I think it's going all right. Look, the bigger picture is that our sport is slowly chipping away at reaching new levels in this country. That's the thing. There's success coming, and it's filtering through. And like I said, I'm always hopeful that it filters, that a little bit of the success of this team is filtering through to every gym and team in New Zealand. But to have enough recognition that someone's willing to back you and do a little reality show for you on mainstream television, that was that going to be done 10 or 15 years ago or 20 years ago? Yeah, 100%. It's like, it's a bit of a earmark moment for us personally as a team, or me, but it's also, it's not off the back of just my work. It's like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Philip Lamb. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Lolo. They wouldn't be here if it wasn't for such and such. My fighters wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Aaron Boyes' fighters and Jason Suddy's fighters, and Chris Sampson, Sue Glass, you name it. It's just it's a flow-on effect. It's an accumulative success, and I hope people see it as that.
I'm sure they do.
Cool.
Great to have the catch up. Thank
Wicked.
you.
No, appreciate it, Tony.
Cool.
Thank you.